Well, even with the playoffs rapidly approaching, there is still lots to be decided heading into the final week of the NFL's regular season. Hey everyone, Rob Wong, joined alongside by national NFL writer John Kryk for another NFL breakdown. Week 18, John. We've finally made it to the end of the regular season, but obviously still a lot of things off the field right now with respect to Damar Hamlin and the Buffalo Bills situation. So lots of thoughts and prayers go out to him, his family, his teammates, of course. The Buffalo Bills in a situation here where they were unable to complete that game, but we'll still see some other teams battle this weekend for playoff positions. And we, of course, got to begin with the NFC North battle between Detroit and Green Bay at Lambeau Field on Sunday night. Both teams looking to clinch that final NFC wildcard berth. Green Bay, a 4.5-point favorite. The Lions have surprised many this season, John. Can they do it again here in Week 18?
Yeah, there's no reason that they couldn't. I mean, they've only lost 2 games since October, and one of the losses was narrow at home on U.S. Thanksgiving against arguably the best team in the league, the Buffalo Bills. So could they do it? For sure. Now, it's interesting how Green Bay's offense started out so poorly this year, and they hit rock bottom in mid-November at Detroit. They scored 9 points. If you remember, Aaron Rodgers was picked off at least twice in that game, and Detroit won, I think it was 15-9. Since then, Green Bay has been on a tear. To that point, they hadn't scored 28 points all season. Since then, they've had, I think, 3 or 4 games of at least 28 points, including 41 in their absolute blowout win over Minnesota last week. So you got to think they're going to score points against that weak Detroit defense, and especially on the ground. They're going to try to penetrate on the ground and set up Aaron Rodgers' passes. But there's no reason to think also that the Lions offense with Jared Goff, who is probably the most unsung offensive star in the league this year. If you look at his stats since the Lions ended that awful start starting in November, he's been one of, if not the best and most productive quarterbacks in the league. This could be a shootout, and the original weather forecast calls for no snow and not too bad temperature there for early January. It could be a really exciting game.
The Seahawks also fighting for that final playoff spot, needing a win over the Rams. Seattle, a 6.5-point favorite at home. Who do you like in this one?
I'm actually going to take the Rams in this one. One of the big reasons is that, yes, Los Angeles, the defending Super Bowl champion, has long since been eliminated from playoff contention. But since they got Baker Mayfield in at quarterback, they've kind of had a boost, almost like a second season for them, if you will. Yeah, they still have a lot of injured players, performers, offensive linemen, receivers, Aaron Donald, you name it. They're banged up, but they're playing hard every week, and they match up well against Seattle in this way especially, is that Cam Akers, their running back, who was a non-factor for most of the season, wasn't in the right headspace. Well, they're all together and fighting on the same wavelength, he and his coaches on the offense. And so if they can run it, Seattle's defense is the 3rd worst in the league against the run, especially lately. They're just getting gashed with teams that can run the ball. And I expect the Rams, whose offense revolves around the ability to run it with their pass game, then as an offshoot of that ability, I think they're going to be able to outscore Seattle in this game and pull off the upset.
Now, a lot of intrigue as well as far as the number 1 seed goes in the NFC and the NFC East division itself. The Eagles have yet to clinch either one of those things, John. They will host the Giants, as reports say Jalen Hurts is set to return from a shoulder injury. Philly is a 14-point favorite at home, as the Giants are also locked into a playoff spot. This just seems like a spot where the Eagles will cruise to victory.
It does seem that way, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did, especially if Jalen Hurts plays, as is expected, from that shoulder injury. I mean, they've had 3 weeks in a row where they could have clinched the division and the top seed. They have to win this, because if they lose, instead of getting the first round bye, and instead of getting the home field advantage through the NFC playoffs, coupled with a Dallas win or a San Francisco win, they would lose that top spot and drop all the way to 5th and be a wild card and open on the road at Tampa Bay, where they lost last year in the playoffs. So it's a huge difference for the Eagles. They have to go all in on this. The only way they're going to start pulling starters is if they're way ahead and have that game like 4 touchdowns in the bag ahead. That's the only time I think we'll see anybody get pulled in that game. It means a lot. It's at home. And as you said, the Giants, they're locked in as the number 6 seed at the wild card in the NFC side. They can't improve it or drop. So if there's going to be a game where the Giants might rest starters, or if any team that's headed for the playoffs is going to do that, you think that the Giants would be the one that does it first. Now, they're in that position way back in 2007. People might remember the Giants franchise, and it's been brought up a lot this week, especially to Brian Daboll, their head coach, in that Tom Coughlin played all the starters against 15-0 New England and gave them a run for their money and almost handed them their first loss of the season before they actually did so, of course, in the Super Bowl. But my point of raising that is that, what type of a competitor Brian Daboll is. You would think that he would be the kind of coach that would try hard and put his starters in. What we sometimes see, Rob, in these games at the end of the year with teams that do play their starters or start it, Bill Belichick with New England was famous for this with Brady last decade. Put him in, play them for a half, let them try to, do something with rhythm on offense so that they just weren't out for like a week or two before the playoffs started. It gives them some momentum. So I expect that the Giants might keep that score close early, and then I think the Eagles will pull away.
And as you mentioned, Dallas and San Francisco both still in the mix. Dallas will take on Washington, and the 49ers will host the Cardinals. Don't forget, for all of John's Week 18 picks, you can sign up for his Kryk Slants newsletter, and you can get him on Twitter at John Kryk.